Let's get right to our MS Now team. Josh Einiger on the ground in Fulton County. Also with us, political contributor Greg Bluestein of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who was at the Fulton County facility while the FBI was on scene. And also joining us, national security analyst and former FBI special agent Michael Feinberg. Josh, the county commissioner says the FBI took pallets of ballots. So what exactly did the FBI take? Because this was an extremely broad search warrant.
It was a very broad search warrant, Anna, and it really had to do with all available ballots from the 2020 election. Notably, they did not leave an inventory list, which is typically the case. So exactly what was taken has not been made public just yet, but pallets of ballots, as you say, according to that source. We are waiting for county officials, as you say, any minute now to address what happened here, and perhaps we'll get more information from them. But let's take a step back for a second. These ballots were only here because of what has been described by a source here in Fulton County this morning as a gadfly lawsuit that was underway and has been underway now for years from someone who still believes in the now discredited theories of election fraud here in Fulton County in 2020. A judge had ordered these ballots, which ordinarily under statute would have been destroyed after 22 months, be held in the building behind me. And so that was why they were here in the first place. And then yesterday, of course, a U.S. attorney in Missouri filed a search warrant. The FBI came here and executed that warrant to take all that material. And they were here for hours taking those pallets away. A little while ago, we spoke with Jeff Duncan, who was the Republican lieutenant governor here in Georgia back in 2020. He's now a Democrat and running for governor. Here's his take on what happened here last night.
There's no fact pattern that shows that this is about facts throughout the entire almost 6 years now. This is about a political vengeance. This is about trying to prove a narrative that's not true. And quite honestly, I mean, they should have moved on. This isn't about what's good for the country. This is about what's doing good for Donald Trump.
A lot of fears among Fulton County Democrats this morning that all of this is an attempt to sow seeds of discontent and seeds of really make people question future election results here in 2026 and in 2028. Of course, we are waiting, as you point out, Anna, for Fulton County officials, the county the head of the Board of Elections here to address the press just in the next couple of minutes about perhaps more information about what was taken yesterday. Anna.
Josh Einiger, thank you for that. Keep us posted as you get more information. And of course, we'll be standing by for that press conference with the county officials. Michael, one of the people who's going to be given this briefing is Fulton County Commission Chair Rob Pitts. And about these ballots that were taken, he says, we don't know where they're being taken. We don't know what's going to happen to them. Again, pallets of ballots. How do we make sure these ballots aren't altered?
So normally there is a very strict chain of custody when the FBI seizes items pursuant to a search warrant. And that chain of custody needs to be offered up at court to defense counsel before the evidence is used. And that should list everybody who at any point had the evidence. Now, this is really going to get interesting, and I don't want to jump on something you're probably going to cover in a minute, but there was a pretty notable non-law enforcement personnel person there who was alone with evidence for some time, it appears, based on a photograph we've seen. And I don't know what's going to happen if they try and call her to testify, because she, by dint of her position, should have nothing to do with law enforcement operations whatsoever.
You're talking about Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence who showed up on scene?
Yes, and based on that photo, at one point she was in a truck with box loads of what are apparently ballots, which means if she was alone, she is going to need to be on the chain of custody for those ballots and explain to defense counsel why she was with them and what she was doing. And if there is a special agent in there with her, that special agent is going to be on the chain of custody and is probably going to get asked by defense counsel why on earth somebody was allowed to be with that evidence who is not a member of the FBI nor on the chain of custody.
So, Michael, let me interrupt
way,
you for just a second, and I'll ask you to continue, but we just literally got some information about why Tulsi Gabbard was there. This is per a Trump administration official. Director Gabbard has a pivotal role in election security and protecting the integrity of our elections against interference, including operations targeting voting systems, databases, and election infrastructure. She has and will continue to take action on President Trump's directive to secure our elections and work with our interagency partners to do so. What do you make of that explanation?
It doesn't pass the laugh test for anybody who's actually worked in this world. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, this was collection of evidence. There is nothing there that cannot be reported to Tulsi Gabbard once they have processed it, analyzed it, and finished doing whatever they were doing on site. Again, it is unheard of for non-law enforcement personnel to take place in the execution of a search warrant. Secondly, this is a criminal investigation. It is looking at past conduct. Even if we believed that Tulsi Gabbard should be involved in law enforcement actions relating to the security of our elections, that is only something that she would be doing if there was something happening presently or in the future. It is inexplicable that there was why she was there. There is literally no legitimate reason that she should have been on site.
So, Greg, there's now the DOJ, the DNI, the FBI, all apparently involved in this. It's a massive escalation in the president's persistent and disproven election fraud claims. How did we get here? And I know you were on scene. What stood out to you?
Yeah, how we got here is, frankly, local officials have been expecting this, dreading this for a year now. There were rumors that this could be happening a year ago, and when President Trump spoke at Davos saying essentially that some people could soon be punished for their roles in the 2020 elections, Fulton County officials went into sort of hyper overdrive, being vigilant about this potential possibility. They were still surprised when it happened so soon, happened yesterday. We reached out to local officials as it was happening who said, we don't know what's going on. We have no idea what they're taking, what they're looking for. There was some confusion about the warrant that needed to be broadened after it was filed incorrectly at first. But what we have now are a number of mysteries, including the Tulsi Gabbard question, which we just tackled, but also what happens next. And a lot of local officials are worried that this will end up kind of triggering a Georgia law that passed after the 2020 election that could allow the state to have more authority in Fulton County elections. Fulton County is Georgia's most populous county. It's also one of the bluest counties in Georgia. It has had a history of election issues for decades of, slow reporting of results, those sort of things. But local officials have really worked to revamp the system. And even state officials a few years ago said, you know what, they've cleaned up their act. And now there's a possibility, a really distinct possibility, that the state could now take more control over Fulton County elections ahead of the midterm.
So, Michael, I'm thinking that a judge had to sign off on the search warrants, right? Does that give this investigation any more legitimacy?
Yes and no. Obviously, the fact that the government presented a theory of criminal action and a plan to an independent judge who is not part of the executive branch, obviously, should give us a little comfort. What worries me is that there is something within Fourth Amendment jurisprudence called the plain view doctrine, which means that if you are searching for evidence of crime X, but inadvertently in the course of that, without trying, come across evidence of crime Y, you're allowed to use that evidence for crime Y's investigation and prosecution. normally you would not be able to take evidence for something unrelated to the specific search warrant. And I really do worry that this administration, which has repeatedly shown disdain for the separation of criminal investigations from political policies, used a small legitimate misdemeanor charge, which is what is on the warrant, as an effort to get into what is essentially an archival facility for 2020 ballots. And then, in going meticulously through them pursuant to that misdemeanor investigation, is going to say, oh, while we were there, we found all this other stuff. And they're going to have it now, and they're going to use it or alter it to forward paranoid conspiracies about what happened in Georgia in 2020.